Welcome back to a new episode of How It All Began, and today we are analyzing one of the most influential and beloved video game of all time, that recently, by the time of this recording, managed to get in the Video Game Hall of Fame, Pokemon Red and Green. Probably 90% of the people that are gonna watch this video have played at least one mainline series Pokemon game, not counting the various spin-offs. But now, a bit of backstory for those who are unfamiliar with the history of the series or need a memory refresh. The main concept for Pokemon was created by Satoshi Tajiri, who was fond of his memories as a child of collecting and discovering various types of insects. He noticed that Japan was getting more and more urbanized and kids were going out less and less. He created Pokemon as a way to let kids have the feelings so dear to him, hoping they could also relate to the Pokemon by naming them and bringing them wherever they went. This is why, when shown the original Game Boy, he thought it was the perfect console for this game. He envisioned a new multiplayer component, where the link cable wasn't used exclusively for competition, but also for trading Pokemon to one another, which is also the reason that there is never a single version of Pokemon released, but always two, so players had to trade Pokemon to fill the Pokédex. Anyway, in 1989, Tajiri and his friend Junichi Masuda founded Game Freak and pitched the idea to Nintendo, even if they had some doubts that the idea of the game would have been accepted. However, Nintendo greenlit the project, and in the next 6 years, Tajiri, Masuda, artist Ken Sugimori and 7 others worked relentlessly on the game, despite having towards the end some heavy financial problems. The game released in 1996 in Japan, and the rest is history. Pokemon is essentially a turn-based RPG, but completely revolutionized the genre. The main difference between Pokemon and other RPGs is that here you technically have 151 different classes for you to choose from, and each had a specific moveset and type. Usually, most RPGs were fantasy themed or had a fantasy element. Pokemon gave players a whole new setting in a modern world, with the same, yet different, rules of our society. However, one of the reasons of Pokemon's huge success was that it was catered towards a younger audience, so many people first experienced RPGs with Pokemon, as myself. Pokemon were unlike anything we ever saw, mixing real-life stuff such as birds, insects, and even rocks with various monsters, creating a captivating and elegant design. Many nowadays argue that Gen 1 Pokemon designs are the best designs, and while I don't necessarily agree with that, I have to say that the original 151 Pokemon have something about them, maybe the childish and innocent look, without worrying to make them look as badass as possible. That definitely makes me love every single one of them. Yes, even far-fetched. Pokemon Red and Green, or Red and Blue, depending if you live outside of Japan, were a real adventure. The Kanto region was a huge and almost endless place to explore, or so it seemed on the tiny Game Boy screen. Different biomes, different Pokemon in each area, secret areas and dungeons, and tons of challenges to beat. Each trainer was a mystery, not knowing what tricks he could pull on you. Beating all 8 gyms seemed like an impossible task, and reaching the Elite Four after crossing the brutal victory road was crazy talk. Discovering all the Pokemon was always exciting, and managing to capture those legendary birds secured you a powerful ally, probably destined to remain in your team. Battling and capturing Pokemon was really fun, and grinding didn't seem as much of a chore. Countless hours have been spent on every single game, and the game didn't end when you managed to beat the champion. Pokemon games don't end when you beat the main story. There are always a ton of stuff to do after you beat the story. In this first game, for example, the hardest area of the game would be unlocked only when you became champion, and the most powerful Pokemon of the game was inside. Let's talk about one of the elements of Pokemon's success, even to this day, the gameplay. You can choose from a wide pool of 150 Pokemon to put 6 of them in your party, make them battle, gain experience, and evolve. Evolving is such an important mechanic in Pokemon, and gives you a reason to grind, so you can have access to better and stronger Pokemon. But it doesn't just give you a tactical edge, it also helps you catch them all, which is the game's motto. After all, Satoshi Tajiri didn't just want players battling each other. The battles were turn-based, and attack power, health lost, and order of attack was all managed by simple stats that every Pokemon and move had. It wasn't complicated at all, and even those unfamiliar with these typical RPG mechanics could, and did, easily get into them. Furthermore, Battles, especially late game ones, required you to have a strategy to counterattack various weaknesses and resistances, and you had to have an all-around strong team. So you couldn't just rush through battles and spam only one move, but you also had to analyze and respond accordingly to different situations. Nowadays, battling in Pokemon has reached perfection, with competitive battling having a pretty balanced and varied meta. Let's say this: the original Pokemon games weren't exactly a programming perfection. In fact, the staff working on it was very small, and such a huge game with lots and lots of variables was bound to have some bugs. There are tons of pages on the internet dedicating to listing all glitches in Generation 1. You could practically do everything, such as fishing indoors, finding level 100 Pokemon as your first encounter, and even triggering a battle with Professor Oak that wasn't supposed to be in the final game. Some are obvious oversights by the devs, but others are so obscure the only way to find them is to search through the game's code and understand how the game works. However, two glitches are worth mentioning. The first one isn't really a glitch, as it is a real Pokemon now. As a joke, one of the developers took a huge risk by adding in the last second the 151st Pokemon that we nowadays know as Mew, one of the most elusive Pokemon out there. For years, rumors on his existence persisted, and one of the most infamous ways of finding it was searching under the truck near the SSN. Of course, this was a lie, but we now know at least 10 different ways to trigger the game in letting us encounter him in any place imaginable. The other glitch I wanted to mention is Missing No, one of the many glitched Pokemon present in the game. Now, in Red and Blue there are only 150 Pokemon catchable, but there are at least other 40 empty slots that the game accesses if you perform certain actions that confuse the game. Missing No is probably the easiest and most famous glitch Pokemon, and again, tons and tons of legends still circulate about his existence and meaning. The last segment I wanted to focus on is the presentation. When it first came out, the graphics weren't considered phenomenal. Even nowadays, Pokemon games have never been known for being graphical powerhouses, but what they lack in raw pixel count is their style. For me, one of the most beautiful Pokemon games is Ruby and Sapphire, or X and Y, which were the first Pokemon games to go 3D, and it was fucking amazing. Anyway, even Red and Blue were considered pretty basic, and some sprite work is horrendous to look at. Like, just look at this Mew. However, what really made these games special is the phenomenal music. Who can forget the memorable tracks of Pallet Town, Route 1, or When You're Surfing, or the most beautiful track, which is the SSN one. And the amazing thing about this soundtrack is that the Game Boy produced it, which had a very limited sound variety. Junichi Masuda, the composer of the series, is a genius for what he made with what little he had. An honorable mention goes to the Pokemon cries as well, even if no one ever notices them. Pokemon Red and Green are a special game to many people, as it has sold over 30 million copies worldwide. Lots of gamers nowadays have fond memories of these games, and this is one of the reasons last year Pokemon Go was such a phenomenon. After Red and Green came out in Japan, Red and Blue was made available worldwide, and a year later another edition, Yellow version, came out. In 2004, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were released. Just last year, the original games were released on the 3DS Virtual Console library. As you see, there are tons of ways to play or replay these still fun and enjoyable games, as Pokemon never gets old. See you in the next video.